Hey, it's me, Willie. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation about the future. Hello, future. We're talking about all things life after school. And so we hope you enjoy the second session where we unpackage more of what life is like when you leave school.
I think one of the things that stood out when we were even talking about the failure thing, Craig, was like a lot of people find their identity in that thing that they do. And so how does one, we often talk about the worldview, you mentioned it a bit earlier, how does one create some, because I think most of our identity comes from what we believe in, right? Yeah. And what we believe in is, I would personally say, our worldview. So how does one kind of, I would even say, like, put your worldview under the microscope and say, is this what I believe, or is it what my parents believe in? So I've taken it upon myself, but I don't necessarily connect with it in any sense. Or am I just believing this because society tells me to? Because I think we deal with a lot of that in Gap Year as well, to help people create a solid worldview so that when your self-confidence hits a knock or when your community disappoints you, you still fundamentally see yourself as who God's called you to be. And how do you then live from that point, and how do you respond from that point? And so maybe we can speak to worldview and creating that holistic thing.
Because identity is who I am. That's fundamentally what it's about. So, and from a Christian perspective, who I am is a child of God. So then that begs the question, who is God? Which then asks the question of what's your worldview about who God is and how we came to be. And then linked to identity is, what is my purpose in life? Why am I here? What is it that... And that's where the Christian worldview offers such a significant perspective and such a significant grounding in saying, well, who you are is you are created in the image of God, by God, to be his son, daughter. And that's the most fundamental aspect of your identity, because then that doesn't actually associate with any of your actions. And then you can live from a place of being a son or daughter and not a place of trying to achieve that. So that settles that aspect of identity. And then it's about saying, well, who is God? And I really think that there's a lot of lack of thought within a Christian context, where people have experienced God, which is amazing because that's how you build and grow in relationship with God, but haven't really thought about or even be grounded in the scriptures of knowing who is God. Like, what are the declarations of who God is? And it is really important for young people to be able to ask themselves, do I actually understand this for myself? Have I considered it for myself? Have I? And I mean, I had the privilege of teaching the students this year on foundations of faith. Out of Hebrews 6, and it was just such a cool process for me to share that journey with them, of being able to say to them, like, do you guys realize, like, these are the core principles, the foundations of what faith is, and why we believe what we believe, and so that you can be equipped to know that you have this solid grounding. And unfortunately, like, that's what makes Gap Year so amazing, is that you're actually carving out the space for a year to do stuff like that, to figure out that grounding and all the other things Willie shared. I was able to do it at university too. It's not like I said earlier about there's no one way of achieving successful life. So, but I did that I was actively involved in a church from the very first week that I was at university. And so I had the opportunity to do that too. But I just think, well, there's so much benefit in having this year where you have a safe space and you sort of transition between having the controlled environment of home and the absolute freedom of your next phase of life. And it's sort of like you have that external governance, but you're being taught internal governance. Like, it's just a really amazing opportunity to invest that in your life. And I mean, even that thing of failure, like, some people I had the perspective when I left school, a gap year would be a waste of time because I would not be progressing towards my success. You know, like, so if I take a gap year, I'm going to be behind and I'm going to fail.
Which is often the misconception.
And I just think that my opinion has changed so significantly from when I arrived here. Having just been exposed to gap year, what is gap year about? What do the students go through? What is taught and how is it approached? And Why is it a thing that is of utmost importance? And now I think like, wow, like there's not much you can do better for your success in life than to say, let me not just jump straight into the next thing. Let me not just take the first job that comes across my table. Let me not just go straight to university. Let me take it side a year and actually figure this out. I mean, I know this sounds like an advert for gap year, but to an extent it is, because I believe in it. Like I think it's got value. A lot of this fear, a lot of this lack of skills, a lot of lack of these conversations, a lot of lack of this grounding, it comes from not having been able to intentionally put time aside for it.
Yeah.
And so if you choose to take a year, put time aside, I mean, again, I know gap year is a privileged thing. It costs money, and it's not simple to just like, but I think that's where it comes to like prioritizing, and for parents to be able to say like, this is such an important thing to prioritize. We will do everything we can to help provide our child the opportunity to do it. Or even for kids to approach their parents saying, I would really love to have this opportunity to set aside this year and be able to do it like that. But then I would encourage everybody to still pursue these principles, whether they do it this gap year or a different gap year, or if they do enter straight into the next phase of life.
Yeah, I think what Craig's saying is really good. I think the reality is, I think it's less than 40% of students that start university finish their prescribed degree within the 3-year period. There's always an extension. And university is more expensive than gap year. So I always say to parents, don't talk to me about cost. Because I know about the fee at university. I'm like, no, it's not just the fee at university, it's food, it's accommodation, it's all these other things. And so gap year is an investment into your child's foundations. And so I always say to them, the objective outcome, you can go there, but that's not what you're getting at. You're getting at something that's quite subjective, hard to explain, because it's soft skills, it's deeper meaning, it's hard stuff that we're dealing with here. And life is about the hard stuff. If you don't know the why in life, then the how and the what becomes very difficult. And there's some people that go and study the accounting and do their honors and go and work in accounting and work for 10, 15 years and wake up at 35 and 40 years old and say, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. I've kind of made it in life. But I feel empty. I feel unfulfilled. And then there are some people that do it and do well and love it. But I think the reality is, you want to build your career, you want to build your family, your marriage, all these things on a foundation, which Craig spoke about around the beginning, of a solid identity of knowing who I am and what is important in life. Because if you don't have that, that's where insecurity comes in. If you're not secure in your identity, you are insecure. Insecure people do funny things. Insecure people quickly blame others to try and avoid looking weak, because they feel weak, so they don't want to expose themselves. And not just that, insecure people will isolate themselves because they're scared of being vulnerable. They're scared of showing that they don't actually know what's going on. And often insecure people are very loud and abrasive and rude, because they're trying to compensate for this lack of, so they're trying to feel powerful but they're not actually feeling powerful. They're just trying to do things that are powerful so they can somehow feel powerful by putting other people down. You see what I mean? So when you settle this identity question, this why question, why am I here? What, like Craig says, working from identity and not towards it. I think you walk into university, work into work without having to prove yourself. Of course, you have to work hard and meet the expectations of work, but you're not going to be moved if some guy screams at you, or if you lose your job. That's not going to move you, because what moves you is your what is important to you, and that's your why. That's God. If God is your why to life, then God is the one with the privilege to move your heart, your emotions, and of course we easily. I mean, I say this now. I still do it. I still do something, and then I so build my worth into the thing, and then it fails, and I'm like, oh man, I'm a failure. And then God's like, no, well, what about me? Remember what I have to say. But like we said earlier, at least then I have a community around me that reminds me, and says, Willie, just remind you look like you sucking lemons. Just remember that Jesus loves you and you're a son, and just because that happened doesn't mean your life's falling apart. And so there's all these almost like scaffoldings in life that really just bless you. But I think for you to realize that life is not just about getting rich, dying and die trying in the process, or anything at the cost of just not looking bad in other people's eyes. A lot of young people today, and some of them might be listening today, are sitting at university making decisions for university in fear of somebody or disappointing somebody else. Yeah. So they're going to university to please somebody else. They're choosing a program because they're like, that's where the money is, or whatever. Or they make a decision on that's what my parents want me to do or think. I do a course called Career Direct with the students here at Gap Year. I actually did one as recent as yesterday afternoon. And the girl yesterday afternoon was going to study law this year, but she decided to come and do Gap Year. Self-admittedly by herself, her parents, and then confirmed by Career Direct, that would be the worst decision for her to make, to go study law. And it's because she's had a year of getting to know herself better, and not just because she wanted to go study law because, you know, when you watch Suits on Netflix...
Yeah, they make it look cool. Lincoln cars.
And, you know, when parents often, you know, they can be deceived by the goodness of their hearts. They want you to be successful. They think, you know, there's a need for lawyers in the world, you know, and you'll always have a job, and it's a helpful skill to have. It's like, yeah, but that's not how she's wired. That's not how God put it together. And so you need to be wise with what you choose and not respond to fear, like fear of disappointing. Yeah. You need to step into your future. You can't be pushed into it. You can't be dragged in by somebody else. That's what I love about Gap Year. Young people are making decisions here, and then they walk into their future. They don't fall into it. They don't get dragged by somebody. They make an intentional decision. I want to go there. I feel that's what God's saying. They've had feedback here. They've had time to... we expose the students to different industries, whether it be ministry, whether it be social work, whether it be psychology or business. They get exposed to different types of people, and they realize, oh wow, like I never actually thought of being a teacher, but as part of Gap Year, I've been teaching young people and I'm loving it. It's answering something of my why in life. It's not just, oh well, is there money in it? You know, am I going to be rich? It's like, you know, COVID showed us, you can lose your job like this, you can lose your livelihood like this, but you can't lose your why when your why has been settled with God, you know, like no one can take that from you. That's you and God. And I think when you find that, you become a very, I don't want to say dangerous, you know, you're a good dangerous, like you become a steadfast person that really you're not just doing a job, you're answering a call. And what a great person to have, that person would be to have in society, to have in any business, any place, somebody that's not just ticking a box or earning a salary, but they're saying yes to something deeper. And I think that's the type of people that God's called us to be. People that live a life of intention, and live a life in submission to Him. And then naturally the excellence comes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I truly believe that if you're doing what God's called you to do, and there's a heart and a passion behind it, you do it excellently. And then we have the best doctors, we have the best business people, the best agricultural, sustainable researchers. And people will come in on the excellence of his work, and he can lead them to his why. Why are you so good? Like, how are you? Like, I can show you all the work I've done, but at the end of the day, I give glory to God, and He stirred something in my heart for this, and that's why I do it. And I'm not just doing a job. I feel it's part of my call on earth. So then it's like, people are like, whoa, okay, so life's not just about doing a job, getting a house, having children, retiring, playing golf, and dying. Like, you know, there's more to life. Life's not just so like this race that Craig was talking about. You're like, I'm going to fall behind. Like, behind what? Like, behind the slave line of people just... And I'm not trying to belittle people that know what they want to do, go to university straight away and do it and get on with that. That's perfectly amazing. If that's you, I celebrate that, because it's not everybody. That means you know what you want, and that's great. But a lot of people don't. And a lot of people are really just... that life almost just happens to them. They are not in any way a change agent or leading their own lives. They are actually, life is just happening to them. And they're just kind of like doing the bare minimum. When God calls us to lead our lives, you know, and that comes with this first.
Yeah.
Because if it's just head stuff, you are just going to do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You find those people, you know, they're more excited about what they're going to do on the weekend or on their holiday than they are about what they're currently involved with. And we only get to live once. Why would you want to live, you know, just hating what you do and kind of just having to slog it out for just get along, you know?
I don't think that for young people, I don't think most people think like, oh, money is the utmost importance. Like at that age, you know, you probably are more inclined to, I want to make a difference in the world, and I want to. I think people's intention is, and heart is for that. You get captured out of fear to pursue like what you're saying, like that. You got to run after certain things. Yeah. But something that always fascinates me, and I've said this to my work team quite often too, is like a lot of people desire something or a specific way they view their life should be, and I often ask myself, what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
And there's a level of intentionality and ownership that you have to take over your own life, where you say, I would like to be a successful person. I'd like to be a person with emotional intelligence. I'd like to be someone who's grounded in who I am. I'd like to have a strong identity. So then my question goes back to what are we doing about it? Yeah. Now I say I want to be someone who grows in my Christian faith. What am I doing about it? I'm surrounding myself with people. I'm actively participating in my church. I'm reading my Bible. I'm seeking God. And when I'm not doing that stuff, I have to take a step back and say, like, but why, if that's my stated intention? I say I want to equip myself in my workspace. I want to get better at what I do. Okay, what am I doing about it? I can't just sit back and wait for it to happen to me. I want to be a well-rounded individual, you know, like, and something that fascinates me. So a really good book I have read recently is called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And it's so fascinating to me how there's such clarity in the research that shows that it's not more talented people that succeed. It's people with a higher level of grit, a higher level of wanting to consistently pursue and persevere through what it is that they are desiring. And that ability to every day say, I'm going to keep on doing this. I'm going to keep persisting. I'm going to keep pursuing. That leads to a higher success rate than having inherent natural talent for something. And I think that concept relates to like so many aspects of our lives. And if we really say we're desiring something, what are you going to do about it? How would you like to approach taking responsibility for your life and investing towards that kind of growth? And I mean, I know it can come across as quite heavy and serious and whatever, but I don't think it actually is. It shouldn't be so serious. Like, and it's as simple for me as like, what do you watch? What do you feed yourself with? What kind of conversations do you have? You want to be a positive role player in society? Then stop always complaining about how terrible the country is or seeing where all the problems are. It's not smart to identify problems. Everyone can see the problems. It takes a high level of intelligence to offer any form of solution. Like, whereas, I mean, that was one of the things that struck me. Pastor Louis was the one who first said, I was like, whoa, you've got such a good point. It doesn't take intelligence to identify the problems. But people like to intellectualize all these things. You see, that's where the problem in society is, or that's where, but that's obvious to a large extent. It's about saying, well, what can we do about it? And so it's the same thing in our lives. Like, what you want to be a positive role player. Okay, then why are you watching 50 YouTube videos about nonsense or spending 3 hours scrolling on Instagram? Like, as opposed to doing something more productive. And I mean, like, I'm all for taking time out to relax and to you know, like, unwind and whatever, you know, we always watch the F1 on a Sunday or whatever, like
quality.
But that is something I purposely do because that's my entertainment, and I want to be entertained in life too, and I choose to be, and so I get that. I get why you would want to spend half an hour on Instagram, but it's that thing of like, of taking ownership and responsibility with how you approach your life. And saying, well, I'm so fearful and I'm nervous about the future. Okay, I hear you. That's very real.
Yeah.
But there's small things you can do about it. There's small things you can say like, well, I want to be intentional about reading a book on emotional intelligence because I've understood that that's a really important skill set to have.
Yeah.
Or it's as simple as say, I want to be intentional about coming to Gap Year. Because just coming to Gap Year is not going to solve anything. Once you're at Gap Year, you've got to be intentional about why you go through Gap Year and what you do with this opportunity that you have. Or if you go to university, you've got to be intentional with pursuing the opportunities that you get. You get a really nice job opportunity straight out of school. You've got to be intentional in that space of growing and learning. And
what frustrates me sometimes is when people are studying something and they said, yeah, I'll do it once I'm done.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, what? Like people that are, especially people that are studying like business and things like that, I'm like, where's your small business? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because surely your education should chase your dreams, not your dreams, your education.
Yeah.
It's like, once I'm educated, then I'll have a dream and then I'll figure it out. And then I'll, like, no. Have the dream and then educate yourself to get to the dream. So like, there was a guy in my varsity, he started a clothing business in our res. And that's freedom of movement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about that Stellies one, wasn't it? The Stellies guy also
yeah,
involved.
he's also good,
All the business people come from Boston.
But I mean, and then there was a guy also on campus that had those coffee trolleys in front of the different faculties. And it was like, this is it. Like if you're studying business, if you're studying engineering, like we had a guy that was building these little jet engines as part of his engineering thing. And he's like, this is so cool. I'm building this jet engine for my studies. That is literally what he does for a living now.
Yeah.
Like just those little engines, he's selling them across the world. And it's like, what are you doing today? And not just abdicating, saying, I'm actually doing this course. And once I've done the course, then I'll, you know what I mean? Like my sister is a physio, you know, it took a long time for her to complete her studies. But she was volunteering at marathons to, you know, work out muscles and do all these things. And actually there you also realize what part of it you like and what part of it you don't like. And you want to specialize on this. And so I think that's so important. It's like Craig says, is backing yourself, like investing in yourself. If you can't, some people are like, I'm going to buy a book, it's like 300 Rand. I'm like, dude, if you can't invest in yourself, why should anyone else? Like, if you can't go, like I always invite people to come with me to the Global Leadership Summit every year. It's too expensive. I'm like, no, it's not. It's $400 and you get food. But the big thing is you're getting an investment into you as a leader, and when you get better, everybody around you gets better. And so,
thanks, Craig Rochelle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the slogan of GLS.
There you go. Discounted tickets right now,
But I think the reality is, like, young people need to put their hand up and choose themselves. And not wait for somebody to choose me. If I get a degree, if I get all these things, then somebody will choose me. If I get the best marks, then hopefully somebody will choose me. It's like, no, choose yourself. Back yourself. I think often parents are also waiting for their kids to do that. It's like, they can see by the look in your eyes if you're really convinced about your idea or what you want to go do. Don't go to your parents and be like, I want to go do this gap year. I'm not sure. It's like, parents are already nervous about a gap year as it is. If you want to do it, you got to look at
the presentation needs to be,
Yeah, you got to say, like, I believe this is how it's going to serve me. This is how it's going to help me. I can see this in the bigger picture of my future. And then they're like, come on, like, where do I sign? Even leaving gap year, like I said, a lot of the guys, like, if you're excited about an idea, go and research it. Go and speak to people that are in that industry. So that when you go to your parents, it's not just like, I don't want to go study anymore. I actually want to go work on yachts. It's like, parents make parents very nervous. Parents be like, oh Lord, help me, you know? So if you are passionate about the yachts, you know, what does that mean? Like, what are you going to do? How does it fit into the big picture of your life? How does it connect with your why? And then people will pick it up in your eyes, like if you really are behind this thing. But if you're not putting, like Craig says, putting time and equipping yourself, then you have maybe a lot of head knowledge, but not always a lot of practical application, because you've only really waited to get started after you've gotten the degree or after you felt like you're ready. If you wait till you feel like you're ready, you're going to wait till you're old grandpa or grandmother, because in my life often I felt very ill-equipped and not ready, but but it's in the process that you learn. It's about saying yes and showing up and taking the risk, and that takes some emotional turmoil. That takes ups and downs. You can't always be comfortable in life. If you're going to stay in your comfort zone, you're gonna stay right where you are now.
And I can speak as someone who with a significant degree that stuff is also just skills that help and equip you. And of course it contributes towards being successful, but there's so much more that's so fundamentally important to being successful in life. When we use that broad term successful, I think if you ask, us as parents, we say, okay, what do we want for our kids? Our kids are still little. And we say, well, we want them to be successful. What does that look like? Well, we want them to be fulfilled. We want them to have joy and purpose in life. And of course, finances is an aspect of it. We don't want them to struggle through life. But that is so much of a broader thing. And if you think if I get to university and I can just get through these degrees and have them, these titles behind them in front of my name, that, then I will have value. That doesn't work like that. I promise you it doesn't work like that. It doesn't give you any greater level of self-identity or even importance or anything. One of my pet hates is when people say, you have a PhD, you must be smart. I'm like, no, I have self-discipline to pursue 10 years worth of studying, and I've learned skills from it, but it doesn't make you intelligent. It doesn't give you any level of emotional intelligence. It's just a tool which I need in my workspace to pursue what it is that I'm trying to pursue, but it doesn't give you any level of identity or... that's stuff you have to work on in a completely different manner. I heard statistics say that 50% of people who do their PhD have depression.
Which is wild.
That's crazy. So that doesn't speak to a well-balanced, healthy, successful society, And to a large extent, the reason why it happens to people is because of isolation, again. Which is the same problem that we've been speaking about. And then it's about being part of a community, involving yourself. And I think the thread that runs through a lot of this is, how are you going to take ownership to become an active participant in a community that will assist, support, help grow you? How are you going to take active responsibility for where you want your life to go? And what are the good options available to you that can help and equip and assist you in that process? One of which is gap year. That's why we're talking about it from the perspective of gap year. One of which. But you might be in another part of the world. You might not be able to come to this gap year. Then there's other gap years. There's other great things to do. But this one is an amazing one because we believe in it. We're part of it. So, that's why we advocate for this gap year as one of the mechanisms with which to equip yourself beyond degrees and such.
But that would be a question that we would ask parents. So if there's parents listening in, that thing you said of success it's powerful. What do you see as success for your children? Because if you look at, and I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but a lot of parents, and I always say it's kind of disguised by the goodness of their hearts. They just want their child to be financially stable. But often it can come across to the child the only way that I can be successful in my parents' eyes is to be well off and to be successful in my career. But if, like Craig said now, the interesting thing is we might define success not just as your financial situation, but your emotional setup, your relationships, your community, your identity, God, your relationship with God. That is my definition of success. And if you as a parent are saying, yes, I agree with that, that is also my definition of success, then my question is, what are you doing to equip your child in all of those areas? Where are you exposing them to community? Where are you exposing them to identity formation? Where are you exposing them to worship? Where are you exposing, you know what I mean? Saying that, no, they go to school, there's where equipping happens. For what? For their career? For what? And what is that school? What have you been to the school? What does the school believe? What is happening at the school? And so parents often, by the goodness of their hearts, they think, okay, if my kid just follows the system, gets a good job, then they're fine. Then they wake up to realize my child is 30 years old still living with me and you know, is alcoholic or whatever. They're like, whoa, man, but at least they've got a good job, or at least they positive or whatever. Or they could have a nice car and a nice house and have a successful career, but they're depressed.
Yeah, they don't
or
feel
they've
whole,
just
yeah.
gone through a divorce and their personal relationships are in a mess. And then it's like, but I helped them get to with a great job, and it's like, no, but you never showed them what community looks like. You never introduced them to worship or to God or built and invested in their character. We have some students that are rock up here at Gap Year, and they are phenomenal in the level of emotional intelligence and character at an age where you think you're 18 years old and
how is this possible?
You have the character of like a 35-year-old. You know, just you serve. It's not about you. You care about others. You always leave the woodpile higher than you found it. It's just amazing people to be around. And whenever I meet their parents, I'm like, what did you do? Like, tell me your secret. Like, what is it? And I was like, and I mean, I'm not going to advocate this as this is what everyone should do. But one parent said this to me because they specifically had a number of their kids come to Gap Year, and all of them were really amazing kids. And I was like, what did you guys do? And they were like, we didn't have rules at home. I was like, what are you saying? Like, what does that mean? Like, this is like a loaded thing. He says, no, he said we had values and responsibilities. And I was like, well, how does that work? He says, like, well, every child had a contribution to the house and a responsibility. But then we had values like honesty and excellence and things like that, which if they did something like, I don't know, lie, then we would sit down and we'd talk about the values. We didn't talk about the rules, we talk about the values. Because surely your values will be wrapped up and kind of explain the rules or whatever. But I think it was just so beautiful how they empowered their children to critically engage with what is a value and what is character and learning self-discipline through responsibility, where they had to cut the grass, they had to wash their clothes. So the day that when they went out into real life, they were like, yeah, of course, like I do this all the time.
Well, it ties back, I mean, because it ties all the way back to where we started.
Yeah.
Which is that you start giving freedom before you release into the world. You know?
Exactly.
So you start framing the way that you approach life to already start taking responsibility, to already, while in a protected environment. I mean, they're implementing what you say, your approach of VGY is they're implementing it already now. So it's a beautiful
governance. And so that's, unfortunately, it's not happening, and that's why Gap Year more and more is becoming a great option. I mean, I won't say this too loud because I'm saying on camera, but it's
into the world.
Some parents are sending their children to us because they don't know what to do with them.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's based on what you learned as a kid and how you also parent, and I think the heart of Gap Year is to say, how do you even partner with the parents to ensure that your kid's future's journey looks way different to what it looked like with yours, and so it's just a beautiful. It's a win for everyone, in my opinion. It becomes a win for literally everyone. But like you were saying. And
it's very hard to explain the benefits of Gap Year sometimes for young people when they leave, because it's not, like I said, it's not an objective thing. Like I've got this now paper or this qualification. It's like you've got impartation in your heart. There's a maturity and a character. I experienced it when I left Gap Year. A lot of Gap Year students comment on it. When they go to university after Gap Year, they mix with people that's the same age as them. They feel like, not in a derogatory way, but they feel like they're a little bit further than them in the context of the types of conversations, the important things in life, where some guys and girls might still be very immature or still very much like superficial or just kind of like not really have much depth of thought about life and life issues. Whereas at Gap Year, you're making a big investment, like Craig said, into those things, so that when you come out of Gap Year, you're like, I'm not interested in these superficial nonsense conversations. I'm actually like, I'm after something deeper. I'm after something meaningful, and so I think that's a phenomenal investment into your child, because it's setting them up to critically engage and make responsible decisions, and not just tick boxes, and I can go on all day. So,
I think before we do, I'd just like to say thanks to both of you again. I think you shared super practical insights into how we can all navigate life's decisions and the real world, whatever that looks like for us, be it leaving high school, starting a new job, going back to university. All those things require, like you were saying, a huge insight in who we are as a person, how we engage in community, as well as what is our foundation. And I think that as we don't want to say creates an ideal person, but we can say definitely fosters your outlook and your perspective on how you see life, and it happened for you. Well, so you're probably asking yourself, what am I doing? Like Craig was saying, what are you doing about it? You might be finding yourself leaving high school, university. We can tell you what we as Victory Gap Year are doing it, and we're creating a space for you to come for a year, to grow as a person, to grow in your purpose and your significance, but ultimately for you to be able to take an intentional step into your future, saying hello to your future without any fear or insecurity as to how do you actually go about this life thing. And so we're interested in creating a conversation with you in the comments as well. Follow us on our social media at Victory Gap Year on Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where most of these conversations also happen, where you can gain more skills and more insight into how you can make an intentional step into your future without feeling insecure or not knowing who you are, but you can actually become a person who contributes to society with boldness and courage, but also humility. Have a great one.